Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Howdy, Dale.
Every month, there's one meeting of the Board of County Commissioners at the weekly business session where it's in the evening. Now, this used to be at 7 o'clock because it was much more convenient for the populace, the bosses, the people that pay the bills. But there's a secretary in the Board of County Commissioners office that she doesn't mind being paid overtime, but she doesn't like staying very late, and 7 o'clock is late. So
Mhm.
everybody in the community has to meet at 5:30 instead. She also didn't like the sun shining in her face in the little back room, so they changed it around. She also doesn't like the fact that she wears a sweater on hot summer days, and so the place is got to be too hot for everybody. She doesn't
Mhm.
like dealing with the public because she's a public servant that hates the public. We don't even need to mention your name. You'll know if you go to the front window. There's one of them there that's sweet. What a wonderful person. Young and sweet. And then there's another one that's not so young and just an absolute pill. And that's the one we're talking about. And she was the one that prompted the commissioners to say that turning in a form asking for information is intimidation.
Mhm.
She hates the public. So the meeting was tonight and once a month at 5:30, and Mike and I always press to get this show started on time, given the fact that we'd like to be there. And tonight was very interesting. Tell them a little bit about what happened this evening, Mike.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you for that input, Mike. Now, moving along.
No, it was. This was a very interesting one. I don't think I've felt that much patriotic energy in the room, at least in a long time, if not ever. Tonight there was, I mean, certainly the biggest thing on the menu was the resolution reaffirming the Second Amendment and coming out against the expansion of the universal background check, which sounds rather innocuous. It's not a big deal, but there's more to that than it would appear from the language, which is
It's a
shocking.
state
Yes.
initiative, not a U.S. initiative. Okay.
Shocking
And
they would write a law, that the name doesn't represent it very well. You know.
I'm one of the people that feels that it's probably a pretty good idea to know who you're selling a firearm to. I think a lot of us feel that way. And so I
Mhm.
had someone stop me in the hallway after one of the little back room meetings and said, what's the problem with these guys that are opposing this? I said, it's not the idea of investigating your background before selling you, some kind of semi-automatic weapon. That's not the question. The way that this legislative concept, like LC, the way this thing is, look at all the lessons that you're getting. LC, yes, the way that this LC is written, the legislative concept is that if you're at a gun range, that's not me, but that's okay. I like the fact that you like to do that. And you decide your friend says, oh, black powder weapon, could I shoot that? Why, yes, go right ahead. Uh-uh. According to this law, that would not be okay to loan them your weapon for a second. Really?
Yeah.
Okay, more likely what's going to happen rather than that is that a friend of yours is going to go hunting. Once again, it's not me, but that's okay. Hey, I kill fish when I go fishing. I probably kill birds and, no, not birds, grass when I go just walk on the grass. Okay, so what they say is that if your friend is going to go hunting, you cannot loan them your weapon because that's the transfer of a weapon. Really? A
Yeah.
transfer? Most people think of a transfer as you sell something to somebody, and most people will say, well, yeah, maybe there should be some kind of background check because you know that if these people that go to gun shows, people like Mike Jones, that go to gun shows and they can buy just about anything there and nobody's checking on them. It's not about that.
Yeah. Well, hang on just a second here. Big freaking misunderstanding about this gun show loophole. That's one of the biggest crocs there is. If you're a dealer at a gun show, you're required to do background checks. I have purchased weapons at gun shows and had to do a background check. So this idea now, what they are talking about is a person-to-person transfer. When they're referring to this gun show loophole, but it's really poorly named. Well,
Like
it
secure
just
rural schools.
yeah, it doesn't. This gun show loophole, which is another thing entirely, is a complete misnomer.
Well, the problem with this legislative concept, and it is being pushed around in Salem, and they're not sure if it's going to end up being tagged onto something. Isn't that always lovely? It's
Mm.
it's an ordinance about carrots. Oh, let's add on the gun rules. You know, they can
Yeah.
put it on anything that they want to. They don't have to apply any kind of logic. We're talking about Salem. So a number of counties have come up with letters that they've written, proposals they've written saying, hey, we don't like the direction this is going. Cheryl Walker argued against this, saying, you know, it's it really doesn't amount to much, and we don't need to do that here. You know what? If it doesn't amount to much and it's not going to end up being a law, why are so many counties writing letters saying we don't like the direction this is going? There's a
Yeah.
reason.
Well, you know what? This is another thing we saw tonight. Was one of the largest demonstrations of tone deafness I've ever seen. You've got a room full of these people that are expressing their support for the Second Amendment, and Cheryl Walker making pronouncements that, well, people really need the background checks. She didn't understand. I guess no one. I'm surprised that she didn't get enough correspondence, or maybe she didn't read the correspondence that she got of people trying to explain this whole thing to her.
Well,
But
her point was, as her point almost always is that there's hundreds of thousands of people or whatever that are
Mhm.
opposed to this idea, and I know that they're out there, and they stop me in the shopping market and tell me what a wonderful person I am. This is Cheryl
Mhm.
Walker speaking, and so I'm representing them, even though they're not here. I have no evidence that's happening. There's no documentation at all.
Right.
But you can trust me, as she said once, twice. Trust me, trust me. I know that people are not coming to Josephine County because of badcounty.com.
Well,
Trust me.
uh, she didn't do her re-election chances any good there tonight, and I think she was probably hoping that when she gets home, she'll get a call from her Democratic Party cronies congratulating her for being so courageous.
Too late. It's
Too
too
late.
late. It's too late for them to do that. Okay.
Well,
Now, the other thing that happened during that, well, the commissioners voted 2-1 to send this letter. It's just a letter, and as I've
yeah.
said to you before, Simon Harris pointed out, by the way, this letter is going to mean absolutely nothing. Why are we doing it? He was against doing it at all. But
Mm.
but every once in a while, the citizens say, you know what? I realize this is symbolic. Would you please symbolize us, please?
Yes, and this is a very good point, because this speaks to the power that I have been talking about here over and over. That when people show up, things happen. When it's clear that there is a wave of sentiment, you are going to get these people on your side, regardless of whether they believe that or not. It is very important to let the people that work for us know what is politically profitable for them. And Keith Heck and Simon Hare, they felt the wind blowing, and they jumped on board. And
Boy, they were practically standing up and singing the Star Spangled Banner.
although, you know what, it was clear that Cheryl had openly voiced her opposition to this in chambers, perhaps with
Yes.
them, and Keith was going out. He was firing preemptive rounds to clear her exit from the building.
Right.
It was amazing to see that why don't you just let her hang out there by herself? That would have been smarter to do. But
Well, now that they put a deputy in there, we can't afford to have anybody out on the road, but we certainly can afford to have a deputy there for an hour and a half to 2 hours in case the public gets out of control. This
yes,
fits right in with this idea of the secretary who feels endangered by people coming to the window. I don't want to talk with the people. And the commissioner's new rule is that you cannot hand them a document. You have to hand it to somebody else. What? Simon Hare actually said we should have a box. A box? What box? What are you talking? A box where they can put their documents in. What? Well, I don't want them handing them to me. Simon,
yeah.
you're that afraid of the people you can't have
Listen,
them hand you a
I
document?
got I got to tell you, I've never felt like I was in a room with so many friends,
Yes.
friends that I didn't know as I did tonight. It was a feeling of kinship with everybody, and the commissioner should have that every time with the people. And
They would if they wouldn't lie all the time. It's just they're
well,
well-known liars. I'm sorry, but they do. We have documentation. I'm not making this up. I'm not saying because I don't like their opinion. So they have a different opinion. Big deal. But they're documented liars. We've seen, and Keith Heck, absolutely. He just did. And we proved it mathematically, scientifically, every possible lee. And he still holds his head up in public? I don't see how.
yeah. Well, I mean, if they had this type of relationship with their constituents, they wouldn't feel the slightest bit threatened by them, and therefore
Right.
wouldn't feel the need to request that an armed deputy be there to intervene on their behalf.
Or bulletproof glass for the secretaries, or let's limit the access to the courthouse. Really, all of
Yeah.
that stuff. I don't want people walking by my window. I don't even like people asking me for documents. Another thing that I noticed,
Well,
that was
that's a bunker mentality
it
for
is
when you
that.
feel like you're operating amongst the enemy.
And they keep telling each other, oh, we've heard it at many meetings. Oh, there's plenty of people who feel the opposite. Where are they? Well, they're really reluctant to come here because you're here. Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, too
Okay,
bad.
if they're
Too
afraid of us,
bad.
that's great. Woohoo! We
Hey,
win. The ambassador is ours.
yeah, the First Amendment, it doesn't guarantee you the right to have your opinion represented. You have to do it.
Oh,
So
yes, right, yes. And if you
so
have an opinion, come. And
yeah.
we saw a perfect example of that tonight with Andreas Bleck.
Mm,
Okay, Andreas Bleck disagrees with everything we say, and if he doesn't know whether he disagrees or not, all he has to do is find out what I say or what Mike says, and he's going to disagree. He'll disagree ahead of time. Okay, so he walks in the room and he sits down right next to where I usually set up the camera. Usually there's nobody that sits right there because they don't want to be in the camera's picture for the entire meeting, which you would be if you sat right next to the camera. And he did a thing that we've seen somebody else do, where they sit in front of the camera and then they kind of move up like this, so their head. So I move the camera up just a little bit. I don't like really moving it above my head, but I can. And he told the people before I walked in that as soon as the camera went on, that he was going to do this kind of stuff, okay, in front of the camera. Now here's the point: if you have a better argument than you out there, if somebody has a better argument than yours, then let's put the two side by side and we'll see who has the better argument. If you don't have a better argument, then just try to cover up the camera.
right.
Speaking of
That's
covering up the
pretty.
camera,
That's
this is a little
pretty
inside
impotent.
baseball, but I need to say something to Mike. Mike,
Mm,
I have a totally black screen. It's absolutely totally black. I have
really?
no idea right now whether we're on the air or we're not on the air, but I'm proceeding just as if everything is just ducky
Okay, and I will
or
tell
beavery.
you, hey, this is Inside Baseball, people.
Yes.
No, I see you. I see
Okay.
the yellow live indicator. So
Okay.
from all indications I see, we're still on the air.
The fact that it's live and yellow has nothing to do with our personalities. It's just the color that they
Not
picked.
mine, anyway.
He's live and yellow both. So, a very interesting thing I thought about the fact that Keith, they don't usually, sometimes they do, but they don't usually, the commissioners, admit Now I'm about to lie to you. Every once in a while, they say something almost like that. So you have to kind of guess what they're up to. And in this case, it was kind of like when Simon Hare said, it doesn't matter to me what manner development, who was putting the drones, supposed drones, the invisible drones, the non-existent drones out at the airport. It doesn't matter to me what they've done in the past. It doesn't matter to me what they've done in the past. Why would he say that? Well, we found out later it doesn't matter to him what they've done in the past because they're the largest contributor to his re-election campaign. And they're doing nothing out there. They haven't paid their rent. They've done nothing. But he said tonight, it's all proceeding according to plan. No, it's not. This is a lie. It's a lie. Simon, you're lying. And as he was leaving the ambassador, two people said to him, hey, Simon is proceeding according to plan. He couldn't get out of there fast enough. He wasn't going to answer any questions about, but I'm sorry. I went off the topic. My point is, here is Keith Heck saying, well, you don't need to jump all over Commissioner, Walker. You really don't need to throw stones. And I turned back to Mike and I said, why is he saying this?
Yeah, who's doing that? I was poking you at the same time.
What is he talking about? You
Right,
don't need to jump all over somebody. And then Cheryl Walker said something that obviously surprised Simon Hare. She's going to vote against this letter about the Second Amendment. Now, what does that tell you, everybody? All right, all in unison. They talked ahead of time. It's illegal for them to do that. We have a source within the commissioner's office that tells us that they do that all the time. And the reason it's illegal is because we don't want them deciding on what their votes are going to be outside of the presence of the public. It's state law. They swore to uphold that, and they break it on a regular basis. And it was obvious that Keithick knew what her vote was going to be, and that's really wrong.
Yeah, you know what? That whole thing was very interesting, and it was like I wondered, why is he going to such great lengths to preemptively defend her?
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, I'm not sitting in his position. He may be looking out and seeing angry faces in the audience, or imagining angry faces in the audience. I don't know, but that whole thing was pretty interesting.
Well, he also continued the same theme as soon as she was done with what she said about why she was going to vote against this. Okay, so he formed this bridge. Keith can't help it. If you're going to lie or if you're going to break the law, you don't yell out, as Keith did 3 times, I know we're breaking the law and I don't care. You just don't say that kind of stuff. Keith can't help himself. It's not that he's being honest, it's he's being a lunkhead. And in this case, in the case with the levy, he had to announce, okay, I'm kicking this off, and you've seen the video. He kicked off the levy. It wasn't some group of independent citizens. No, that's BS, okay? It was Keith Heck. It was the county commissioners. And they weren't too happy with him doing it. He can't, there's no way, it's not that he can't be devious, because we've seen him do that. We have seen him do that, because you've seen the tape. He's not, is there a nice way to put this? No, he's just not bright enough to try to deceive you. So he has to try to defend Cheryl Walker before she said anything, which is a dead giveaway that he knew what she was going to say. It's against the law.
Yeah, no, they clearly discussed what her opinion was about this, and perhaps
but not with Simon.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
He didn't know.
Well, yes, but it's been pretty clear to people who have been to the weekly business session on a regular basis that, generally speaking, Keith and Cheryl are pretty tight. Yeah. Keith and Cheryl and Simon are not. Or Simon is not. Yeah, Simon's the odd man out there.
Well, people could say, oh, Dale, they probably discussed this in a public meeting when you weren't there. Now, when is that? Or when the camera wasn't running? Hello? Or maybe in some other time that, yeah, they did discuss it. They discussed it illegally in a quorum, 2 of them talking to each other about what she was going to do. My guess is, and it's only a guess, is they exchanged emails. This is what got Lane County into trouble. Look, the point of it is there wouldn't be such a law if there wasn't some kind of reason. And the reason for it is they're not supposed to come to conclusions and decide how they're going to vote by comparing notes outside of the presence of you. This is for you, that because there's been a long history everywhere, and especially in Josephine County, of little backroom meetings. That's why they call it the little back room now. This is hilarious to me. I started calling it the little back room, and now other people are saying it. They're standing up at the podium. Well, when you met in the little back room, they're all saying it now.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, you know what, and I guess there's Mrs. Clinton is trying to instruct us as best she can how you get away with this.
Yeah.
You have the email server in your own home. That's
Right.
how you do it. But I think most anybody could set up. I mean, you can set up an anonymous Gmail account that is
Okay, everybody take
registered.
notes. Mike is going to show you how to do
Yes,
this.
I'm going to tell you how to
How
do
to
this.
find porn. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, yes. You just take it. No, the way you do this on the small player level here is just set up an anonymous Gmail account and use that for your correspondence going back and
But
forth.
they're not supposed to do that when they're in public service.
I understand, but clearly this kind of stuff takes place, and
Sure looks like it does.
And well, but if you really want to make sure that you never get caught, you have the server in your own home, and then when they ask for the emails, you destroy everything that will incriminate you and give them a bunch of blather emails and say this is all of it here.
That's
That's how you do it.
I grew up and until recently was a Democrat. Oh, I'm never going to watch this show again. Oh, get over it. Okay, I'm an independent now. Okay, is there a coincidence that a
He's the
candidate, the next president of the United States, Hillary Clinton, is doing that, that the governor of our state, a Democrat, is doing that, or did that, and
Right.
that Cheryl Walker, the only Democrat among the commissioners, doesn't want her emails let out because she's been keeping private, personal
Yes.
emails on the county system. Really?
Isn't it funny that all of these things are coming to light all at the same time?
Well, but is the NSA all Democrats? I don't think so.
No. Listen, there's probably plenty of
There's plenty of blame to go around.
Plenty of blame to go around.
Okay, now there was at least one other main item that was, but I want to remind people, Simon Hare says that the airport drone project is going along according to plan. Woohoo! Boy, that's nice. What a big lie. When we say, well, they lied to us, oh, I don't know, maybe those guys are wrong. No, that's a lie. Okay, so what was the next biggest thing that happened on tonight's comedy show, Mike?
Well, coordination. Wait a minute. You're talking about comedy. I forgot. Rika got up and said that that we should all be able to speak. She's schizophrenic. She can't figure out, whether she's for us being able to speak or against us. I'm not sure.
So
that was interesting.
Maybe it's IV marijuana versus marijuana from Northern California? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, I am simply teasing Rika Brown. But what a surprise! And people were like, they were surprised that she was speaking out in favor of the First Amendment for once. Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because the Second Amendment people there made her feel like defending the First Amendment. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But and she got seconded by Vivian and
Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger.
Right,
yeah.
and so I was not a frequenter of the weekly business session when this previous rule was in place, so I don't have any personal reflection on it. Can you tell me what you think about that? Was she actually proposing something that you're in support of?
Oh, yeah, it used to be, as Rika pointed out tonight, very unusual that she would do this. This Grants Pass City Council has a rule where if you're going to speak on an agenda item that you can, after each agenda item, before they take their vote, which unlike Cave Junction, first they take the vote and then they let you speak about it. Oh, that's nice. So they're not going to change their way. The mayor out there is like a piece of work, buddy. So that doesn't do you any good to speak about it after they've already made the final
Yes.
decision. Lovely.
The cow
Okay.
has left the barn.
And now you
Let's
can
talk about
comment.
it.
Yes, right,
Yes.
right, right. So in this case, at the Grants Pass City Council meetings, you can speak about agenda items just before they take their vote. Now, I've never seen any evidence that's changed their mind, but it makes you feel good that you can do that. And maybe if you get 20 people up there saying it, they might hesitate a little bit and then vote for
Hmm.
it. Now, they also make the rule that you can get up toward the beginning of the meeting, which I like personally, and you can talk about things that are not on the agenda. Well, I think you should be able to talk about anything, but whatever. So it used to be, before Simon Hare got here, it used to be that when there were items, like there were 2 items this evening, that you could talk about those items before they took the vote. Well, they don't like that anymore. And so now, see, theoretically, how horrible would this be? In a meeting with 5 people in the audience, I might get a chance to speak for a total of 9 minutes. 3 minutes on each item. You just can't have that because a meeting could extend past half an hour, Mike. And so
Right.
now they make the rule where you have to fit everything in within 3 minutes. Well, this is the same with the budget discussions. They'll go on for 3 hours. One person in the audience, me, and then I get up and I say, that's a lot of items to speak about in just 3 minutes. Keith Heck, running the meeting before he was a commissioner. That's it for you. You're going to have to sit down. I said, well, why? Because you're not on the topic. I said, I'm on the topic of the entire budget and how much time we have. Well, that's enough. That's it. Now, he was ready. They said to him, that Dale Matthews gets up, tell him his shoe is untied, he's got to sit down, or whatever. So
Right.
your ability to get up and speak about anything is not infringed except when they interrupt you or bug you or complain about you. You have 3 minutes to talk about any subject you want, except, as Keith Heck pointed out tonight, he said, it seems like there's an awful lot of people here to talk about the Second Amendment. Okay? So we've heard from several of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if there's any more that want to speak on this subject, I just admonish you. He didn't use the word much. I just warn you. He didn't use that word either. But I want to remind you that you've already been heard from, and they've already made your point for you, so you don't need to
Yes.
talk.
Yeah. Right.
Really, Keith?
Exactly. So,
Hello?
so just feel like all these people represented you, and let's move on to something else.
Because we've already heard your comments said by somebody else.
Right.
Welcome to the First Amendment.
Well, again, this is Keith Heck. He's not a people person.
No, he fits better in with the office staff.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
you know what?
So,
Listen, it's been my experience, and this is not an exclusive that Josephine County has on people that work for the county who have no business being public servants. They're just not
public
any
servants, give me a break.
Yeah. They're just not any good at it at all. It always seemed odd to me that these people that had a certain quality about them, and you feel free to use your imagination, it would always end up in positions of power over other people in government. And in this particular case, I was a building contractor, so you had certain inspectors that you knew what they were gunning for when they came up the driveway. They all had their little pet peeves that they would call you out on, and regardless whether you did it right or not, they would. If they had it in for you, they would find something. And then I had other guys that I knew were reasonable people, and I'd like to see them arriving on my job site just because I knew that they weren't going to try to make my life difficult, which, by the way, is not their job, to make your life difficult. You might think that that's what it is, but this seems to be a peculiar trait of some people who get into government work, is that they like to exercise power in a negative way over other people.
Why
And
would you have somebody at a front window that hates and fears the public? That's not public service.
why would you not, as their boss, who's a public servant, remove them from that as soon as you learned that about them?
I would
You'd say,
take
you know what, you perhaps should have another line of work. Maybe you should just be filing stuff back here or something.
Right, right. Now, if that person's going to be that snippy, first of all, you keep them away from scissors because you don't want that kind of snippy. You would have them work with paperwork and documents and boxes in some
Mm-hmm.
back room somewhere that needs to be done, almost certainly, and then
Right.
they can be upset and kick those boxes and be upset with those boxes and be snippy with those boxes. But why would you have them in front of people? I'm talking about Terry Wharton. Okay, I don't mind using names. She's really difficult to get along with. And Judy Aarons, who's just sweet, and she asks tough questions sometimes, but she comes up and says, well, can you tell me? And it was, oh, you know, you're doing this. Hey, 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 hey. I'm just asking. It's like when she dealt with manor development. Well, how long have you been in the area? I'm not going to answer this. Click. Hey, wait a minute. You're getting money from the county government, and you can't even talk about a simple question like a human being, really? I don't get it.
Yeah. Well,
Why do we
uh,
tolerate this?
yeah. Well, I mean, and that really is the problem. We do tolerate it, and but listen, the solution is the kind of stuff that we saw tonight and have seen on a number of occasions, maybe in the last 6 or 8 months, where people come in and regardless of whether let me tell you something. Had the entire board been against this thing when these people came in, they would have been for it when, you know,
Yeah,
I think maybe
we've seen that
if
happen before.
yes, yeah. There isn't any question. There's power in people showing up. There's power in people caring and being passionate about their rights. And I wish that they would take more of an interest in some of the more minute things that Dale thankfully uncovers for us in the back room and elsewhere.
Right. Hold on just a second while I tell somebody I'm on the air.
Oh yes, this is what happens. It's busy. It's busy in the Bad County newsroom, and people. Well,
That was rude. I just said I'm on the air. I can't talk to you right now. I don't even know who it was. It's terrible. I hate doing that, but I think I know
yeah.
who it is because the same guy calls me and keeps forgetting that we're on the air. One
Well,
of the
we're a little later tonight,
Well, okay.
so.
One of the things that happened, we sometimes go a little bit longer. One of the things that happened, that's happened in the past, is that a number of people would show up. We're telling you what our perceptions are of the county commissioners so that you're better educated about how the system actually works. You're not going to read this in the Courier. They would never, ever talk about this. It's not in the press release. One of the things that I've seen happen is a bunch of people would show up and the commissioners wouldn't change their mind. They were marching lockstep toward the decision they had already made. They had essentially already taken the vote that was just ceremonial. They hate it when you say it's ceremonial. And I've seen it happen several times in a row. Well, something's happened, and I think I know what it is,
Mhm.
where they're now pretty responsive to people, which is the same reason that they have a sheriff's deputy in that room. They're afraid of us.
Mm.
This is, it does fit
I like
the
it.
facts. It fits the facts. We know that that's part of the reason for why they don't want to talk about the raises and the hires, the new hires they're doing, because they're getting all this feedback from people who are saying, what are you thinking? And now they don't want to talk about that in public anymore. They suggest that the Mark Von Holly contract, which was a lunkhead thing to do, they kept saying during the, well, shouldn't this be an executive session? Wally Hicks points out to him, there's really no compelling reason for it to be an executive session. They want to get beyond our view. And the fact that, look, right now, it's me. You know, next year it's going to be somebody else. Who knows? But right now, with us there, with you there with me, you're sitting right next to me. And boy, is that a tight fit with that camera. And we're watching what they're doing. They're running scared. They know we're watching them, everything that they do. I don't mean every hiccup. So that's okay. We don't tell you a lot of things that they say. They're pretty funny. They're just funny little things, and everybody misspeaks. No, I'm talking about the big things, like let's give them more money for wheelchair ramps out at the IV based on their current performance. And that doesn't make any sense. That's what they want to do. And when it was asked of them, well, what are they going to do with the money? Well, we don't know yet, but they'll figure out something. Really? The same people that sold you that idea? Really? You
Well,
need to know.
yeah,
Well,
indeed.
okay, so those are the two big things now. And tolerating people who don't tell you the truth. This is a hilarious example. I think it is. Last week, Cheryl Walker, Sandy Casanelli got up. Say anything you want about pluses and minuses about Sandy. She's right on this one. And she said, from her experience, and I was sitting there right in that same room when these things happened. She said, So Ready, Southern Oregon Regional Economic Development Inc., who is Cheryl Walker's best pal. Backing up just a little bit, Cheryl Walker participates in votes and presses for So Ready getting more money, more of all of our money that could go to other projects. Cheryl Walker sits on the board of directors of So Ready. A lot of people throw around the term conflict of interest. This is the perfect definition. She's on their board of directors and she's directing money toward them.
Yeah.
At the very least, she should be forced to get off of their board of directors. This is a conflict of interest, just as it was with Simon Hare, seeing that the money went to Manor Development, who hasn't done anything that they're supposed to do, and they're his biggest contributor. This is conflict of interest, and you're voting in favor. Well, anyway, so Sandy Casanelli said, well, Sowerty did this and this and this and this and this, and she's got their number, buddy, and all kinds of things that they had suggested that turned out to be disasters, and she did this last week. So Sandy always says this snippy little thing, well, if you've got anything to say, you should just go ahead and ask me now. Any comments? Seeing none, I think it's a little bit funny. Okay, that's me. And so she goes and sits down. Nothing. Until the commissioner's protected time, this is a term I made up, they can say anything they want about anybody and they can't respond. And brother, we have tried. Say, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Chair, she's just saying, nope, 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 nothing from you, nope, nope, nope. That started with Simon. Absolutely nothing. Sandy didn't allow that to happen, but Simon went big time into that. You cannot respond. Once you're seated, that's it. Now we're going to take you on, and we've got the microphone, and you don't. Okay? So what
Right.
was it Ronald Reagan said? I paid for this microphone. Yeah, well, that
Yes.
was written by Peggy Noonan. But anyway, wonderful writer for him. He reads a script very well, at least he used to. Not so much anymore. And Mike didn't even laugh about that. Okay. So,
Yes, that's right. I didn't.
okay. Um, so Sandy Casanelli says all this stuff about So Ready. So Ready's a lot of rocks can be thrown at So Ready. And so Cheryl Walker waits in, and then she lights into Sandy Casanelli. She doesn't defend So Ready. She says, well, Sandy Casanelli ought to remember when she voted to give some friends of hers some money that was nothing ever came of it. And so before she starts throwing stones and grandstanding,
Mm-hmm.
Sandy Casanelli couldn't grandstand if she was standing on a wheelchair ramp, okay, because she's too small to do that. And was grandstanding, and she's trying to, look big and all the rest of the stuff. Well, boy, oh boy, did Cheryl Walker pick the wrong example, buddy. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. It's really funny because Sandy Casanelli was the only one who opposed these guys, and she told the other commissioners we shouldn't be doing this. No, far from being her friend, they were the opposite. And here is the piece of resistance, the pièce de résistance, right? It turns out that it was So Ready that brought the guy to the commissioners saying, we have completely vetted this guy, and boy, is he
Yes.
wonderful. Then when the commissioners,
Yes.
especially with Sandy Casanelli, started asking questions, you couldn't see them back off fast enough. I'm not exaggerating. We've worked with this guy for a whole year, and we really think that he's got some wonderful ideas. And then Sandy asked a couple of questions, and the others went, yeah, that's right. What about that? And then Michael Smith from Silverty is like, I'm not kidding you. Well, we hardly know him. Really? What an interesting thing to say. Well, we don't know much about his. He's sitting right there, right next to Michael Smith from So Ready, and Michael's slitting his throat right at the meeting on tape. It was hilarious, buddy. Now, Cheryl Walker tries to say, well, that's Sandy Casanelli. Wrong example. It was exactly opposite of everything that's truthful. And so, Mike, you were sitting there after I got up and defended Sandy, because I was in the room when all this stuff happened, and after Sandy got up and defended herself against Cheryl Walker with a microphone, which is the only authority that she has, what was Cheryl Walker's studious response to this, Mike? Absolutely
Nothing.
nothing. Absolutely not a single word.
Yeah, not a
Here's our
word.
here's
Not
our
word one.
problem. We've seen this happen with Cheryl, and we've seen it happen with Keith. You know the famous Keith story. I don't need to tell you that over and over again. The problem is that when they're sitting up there, and they've been elected, in Cheryl's case, by 62 votes, and they've got a microphone, and it's commissioners' protected time, they can say anything at all that they want about you, and you cannot defend yourself for a week.
Right.
And this was absolutely, completely, totally nothing less than a hilarious lie, because Sandy was exactly on the opposite side on this. These were her friends. She said this was her friend. This guy wasn't her friend. The opposite. And Cheryl Walker then gets away with a lie for a whole week. And some people may not come back today and ever hear, they're not going to hear it in the Courier. And so that's it. Okay, she had the microphone and she abused her power. What can we do about this as citizens? Really, what can we do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, you should have got on board with the recall. I mean,
Yes.
that's unfortunate that we didn't get more. That we didn't have that.
Well, here's something
Opportunity.
suspicious about the recall. Okay, so previous elections where people had to get together petitions to get something, including a recall of Sandy Casanelli and recall of some city councilors. And Art Harvey is the guy in charge of making sure that the petitions are correct. Remember, in Sandy Casanelli's case, I sat there and I videotaped it, 646, boy, was that tedious, pieces of paper where people were supposed to sign it. 646 examples weren't signed. It's state law. It says that you have to do this under penalty of, not death, but under penalty of the law. He completely overlooked that, passed them through anyway, and when Sandy and I both said to him on tape, so what can be done about this? He said, well, it's over now, but you can always appeal to the state. And he's got this big grin on his face. Okay, so the point is that the number of people who were rejected as far as their signatures being invalid on the things that we know for sure, because it's stated in public that Art Harvey approves of, the rejections were like this. Then it comes along for the Cheryl Walker recall. The rejections go way up here. And then it comes down for the levy getting on the recall, getting on the list, and it's all the way back down here. Now, something happened there.
Yeah.
Some
Yes.
strange,
Yes.
alignment of the sun and the moon and Mars, and all of a sudden, here it's been like this for years and years and years, and then when it gets to the recall of Cheryl Walker, it's suddenly like through the roof. They couldn't even get it passed because it wasn't enough. There weren't enough people. They thought there were enough people, but there weren't. Now, does it make you a little bit suspicious that why did this sudden, and now it's back to normal again? Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah. I'm afraid that depending on who's in office, you're going to have to overwhelm them with just overwhelming numbers there. That's the only way you're going to pull that off.
Well,
But hopefully
don't be
we don't have
afraid.
to do that again.
Yeah, don't be
Yes.
afraid, Mike. The way to handle this is what Mike's been telling you. What we need to do, whatever your opinion is about the levy, is you need to turn out in big numbers. And we've already heard from SOS and Cuffs that the reason that they want this in a May election, remember it was all November, and then suddenly May, May, May. What happened? Why did they put it on May? Because they told us why they did it, because less people will vote. What? Yeah, less people will vote. Well, why would you do that then? Because then we're going to go and vote. Oh. Do you feel
Right.
just a little bit
Yeah.
manipulated by
So
that?
what they're going to they know that that's when the lowest turnout is,
That's
and they
right. They said it.
know that the majority of the people are against it. So what they do is they put it in May. They pull off your typical union voting drive, and you turn out your people, you turn out your base. For in this particular case, the base are all the levy supporters, and you turn them out, and defeat the people finally after
What the two main,
10
besides
years.
looking at who the main wheels are within SOS and Cuffs, besides looking at who they are and their city employees and county employees, well, okay, they're citizens, and then it turns out that the phone banks are run at AFSCME headquarters. Really? At the union headquarters? At the union headquarters? Yeah, the phone banks are at union headquarters. You know how tough they've got to be about who gets to do what. And in the last election, the county assessor, this is no coincidence, the county assessor says that when you turn in your petitions to put this on the ballot, you bring them to the courthouse, to my desk at the county courthouse. I'm the county assessor, and you turn in these. That's that's involvement by the county. Is there any question in your mind? That's definitely involvement. But oh no, we're not involved at all. Connie Roach, you said bring it in. Well, I never said they had to. Connie, you're being manipulated once again. Now, if you think it's a great idea, go and do it according to your own convictions, okay? But the idea that, oh, the county government's not involved at all, we've got it on tape. Well, so what? So what that there's tape? So what that there's tape? Really? Mike, why don't you lead us out of this? Because the only indication that I have that we're on the air is a big black screen. So why don't you say the final word, and then I will shut off this show. I'll do the best that I can.
Okay, yeah, I concur with what Dale says. You're going to have to participate in this and turn out in big numbers, just like people did tonight. It has to be as much of an issue for you as these people felt about the Second Amendment. If you don't want to pay another $1.40 per thousand, then you're going to have to turn out and vote and turn this thing down. I would like this to be decisive personally, because I'm sick of having to vote on this every single year. I think that an embarrassment perhaps might fend them off for a couple of years. So help us in that regard.